Welcome back to Bad Things in History, where we subtitle every video. New inventions are common today, but for much of human history, innovations were rare. Most people assumed the future would be much like the past. Technology changed quickly in the early 19th century, and as new conveniences entered daily life, so did unspeakable dangers. Today we are going to explore a few of the most deadly inventions from Victorian England. Hope for the future. The first wave of consumer products emerged primarily because of developments in England, and during the Victorian era, mass production would flood the world with never-before-seen creations. The Victorian era started around 1820 and continued until 1914. Most of it overlapped with the reign of Queen Victoria, thus why it is named after her, but several earlier developments helped fuel the growth of industry. Steam-powered engines were first discovered around the year 100, but were largely a curiosity. They needed to be more efficient for practical applications. That changed around 1780. James Watt was able to increase the efficiency of the engine so that it could perform practical work. Soon it became possible to move ships across the ocean faster than ever, and it was possible to power large machines that could be used to manufacture other items. The abundance of steam power quickly led to other significant changes, accelerating the development of new technologies. The textile industry was the first to undergo rapid change. Instead of depending on human power, workers created textiles with the help of a power loom. Edmund Cartwright patented this time-saving device in 1783. The ability to produce iron also increased dramatically. Using steam engines and other discoveries resulted in the creation of large blast furnaces. This in turn led to the creation of machine tools. For the first time, humanity could manufacture precision instruments. The final piece of the puzzle would arrive in the late 1800s as the wonders of electricity began to spread worldwide. With its arrival, Victorian belief in a utopian future began in earnest. Electrical futurists claimed the world would improve and become cleaner as society moved beyond coal and steam. For the first time in human history, people believed the future was full of hope and wonder. The products of industry also created a middle class. A large segment of society with disposable income emerged from poverty, and thanks to the ability to mass-produce products, it was possible for businesses to sell directly to consumers. Several of these inventions were also quite deadly. Exploding balls. Billiards evolved from outdoor games such as golf and croquet. King Louis XI of France owned the first known indoor billiard table. He was born in 1461 and passed away in 1483, but his favorite game would live on. Over the next 2 centuries, the game of billiards spread among the nobility in France. By 1727, it was being played in cafes all over the country. Billiards became so popular it spread to England as well, and from there it spread across the ocean to the United States. The balls used to play this game were made of ivory. Originally, they were manufactured in England. By 1862, most billiard balls were made in New York City instead. The company responsible for producing them became concerned that there may be an ivory shortage. So it offered a $10,000 prize to anyone who could invent a replacement. John Wesley Hyatt accepted the challenge. In 1869, he developed the first type of plastic, called celluloid. The new material was useful for manufacturing a wide selection of products. It also had some troubling properties. Celluloid was made from gun cotton, which is a powerful explosive, so the plastic items created with celluloid were highly flammable. The billiard balls demonstrated this in a dramatic way. When they collided, it wasn't uncommon for the balls to catch on fire. In some cases, they exploded. John wrote about this strange side effect in 1914. Occasionally, the violent contact of the balls would produce a mild explosion like a percussion gun cap. We had a letter from a billiard saloon proprietor in Colorado, adding that at the sound of the explosion, instantly every man in the room pulled his gun. Although exploding billiard balls didn't directly kill anybody, celluloid did. It was used to manufacture combs, buttons, and even false teeth. These items could burst into flame without warning, causing serious injury and sometimes death. The products were also sold throughout the British Empire and the United States. Explosions weren't the only danger lurking in the sea of new inventions. For some families during the Victorian era, simply decorating the house could have deadly consequences. Deadly wallpaper. Many inhabitants of Victorian England took great pride in the appearance of their homes. They wanted visitors to be thoroughly impressed by beautiful interiors. One of the most common items used to decorate homes was wallpaper. During the 1800s, one of the most popular colors was bright green, but creating the pigment was not without risk. In 1778, Swedish chemist Carl Scheele combined copper and arsenic. This result became known as Scheele's green. It created a rich and vivid shade of green which was extremely popular. By the middle of the 19th century, it was used in wallpapers all over England. The medical community soon realized that England's favorite wallpaper was very deadly. In April 1862, a bricklayer and his wife asked doctors for help. 3 of their 4 children had died under mysterious circumstances, and their single remaining daughter was sick and might pass away too. At first, doctors thought the child had diphtheria, but as the symptoms progressed, they realized something else was happening. Unfortunately, Victorian medicine couldn't save the young girl's life. She passed away from her illness. When an autopsy was performed, the results showed that the child died from arsenic poisoning. There was an inquest for which a judge and jury were required. After hearing the evidence, the jury decided that the girl had died from natural causes. They refused to believe that wallpaper could kill. The medical community in England continued to identify cases of arsenic poisoning, however, it was always children that were sick. The adults seemed to be immune. Eventually, they realized why this was happening. Doctors discovered that arsenic is far more deadly for children than adults. Although nothing could be done illegally, doctors began spreading the word. The public, primarily due to children dying, finally started demanding arsenic-free products. By 1870, most of the wallpaper sold in England no longer contained arsenic, but contaminated wallpaper continued to occupy homes for decades. The Victorian attachment to arsenic was not crushed overnight. Women wore bright green dresses containing the same deadly green dye used in wallpaper. Men's fashion also used the dangerous pigment. Arsenic also played a role in food. Vegetables were dipped in arsenic to keep insects from landing on them, and meat was also soaked in an arsenic solution to keep flies off it. Arsenic was even present in the glue on the back of postage stamps. Killer bread. The most essential food in Victorian England was bread. The minimum wage was even measured against how much bread a worker could purchase. And this metric was used for an excellent reason. An average Victorian family had 6 people, and they consumed about 55 pounds of bread per week. Most families couldn't cook their own bread, so they had to buy it from bakeries. The bakeries were happy to feed the public, but they wanted to sell the baked goods for as much as possible. For those who purchased daily bread, the goal was to buy the highest quality loaf possible. If the bread was very white and heavy, it was good quality. The bakers observed this preference and modified their flour to increase profit margins. Bakers would mix the flour with other products to make it appear as white as possible. Sometimes ground up bone was mixed with it, in other cases they used chalk, but one of the most popular substances was aluminum sulfate, or alum. Alum made the bread appear very white and fluffy. Most importantly, it added weight. This meant that bakers could use less flour but charge the same amount. And luckily for greedy bakers, consumers couldn't tell anything was wrong when they tasted the bread. Since Victorian families ate enormous amounts of bread, the alum began having severe health impacts. The substance can cause bowel problems in large doses, most notably chronic diarrhea. In the 1800s, diarrhea could easily become a fatal condition for children, so many of the children who grew up eating bread didn't survive to become adults. The contaminated food wasn't safe for adults either. The alum prevented stomach acid from working correctly, meaning nutrients were never received from the food. Despite having plenty of bread, people in England were dying of malnutrition. The risk to public health was finally acknowledged around 1872 when the government began regulating the contents of flour. Murder bottles. During the Victorian era, only 2 out of 10 children survived to their second birthday, and a popular influencer may have been one of many reasons why. Fashion during this time period influenced childcare in some surprising ways. Most women wore very tight-fitting corsets. Removing a corset and putting it back on was also very difficult. Therefore, most women wore it for the entire day. For a new mother in Victorian England, feeding a baby could be impossible. Infant hunger was simply incompatible with the demands of a corset, but technology was finally able to help by creating new types of baby bottles. The concept of a baby bottle wasn't new. They have existed since at least 2000 BCE. Clay structures with nipple-shaped spouts have been found in several ancient sites, but the first device resembling the modern baby bottle appeared in France in 1751. By 1851, baby bottles were being manufactured and sold in England as well. Thanks to these time-saving devices, mothers could feed their babies milk while wearing their challenging wardrobe. The bottles were made of glass. A rubber tube was attached to it as well as a nipple. The shape of the bottle made it challenging to clean, but Victorian mothers decided that wasn't a problem. The reason why was Isabella Beeton. Born on March 14, 1836 in London, Isabella became a journalist and an editor, but after marrying in 1856, her attention turned to domestic matters. She began collecting recipes and advice on how to manage a household. In 1861, she published her best-selling book, Mrs. Beeton's Household Management. It told mothers how to cook, how to clean, and how to care for their children. Most importantly, she told mothers who used baby bottles that it was only necessary to clean them once every 2 or 3 weeks. It didn't take long for doctors to disagree with Isabella Beeton. They observed that something was growing inside the rubber hoses of baby bottles. They didn't know what it was, but it made most babies sick, and a significant number of them died. The medical community began calling the devices murder bottles. Today, scientists know that the dirty baby bottles were a breeding ground for bacteria. The microorganisms gave babies dysentery and, in some cases, typhoid. Both diseases can be deadly for infants. A new baby bottle became available in 1894, which solved many of these problems, and in 1897, Buffalo, New York banned the use or sale of murder bottles. The trend soon spread across the United States and Europe. Despite these attempts to eliminate the deadly baby bottles, some women continued using them well into the 1920s. Antiseptic death. Some inventions during the Victorian era were extremely useful and relatively safe, but some people still found a way to make them dangerous. Joseph Lister was born on April 5, 1827, a few miles from London. He entered medical school in 1849, and by 1851 he worked as a surgeon. Early in Joseph's career, the hospital where he worked had an outbreak of erysipelas, a bacterial infection that affects the skin. Joseph observed that there were no cases of this disease in the hospital until after a patient with the condition was brought in. From there, it spread throughout the entire facility. Inspired by the diseases he witnessed, Joseph spent several years researching ways to stop infections during surgery. In 1865, he began working with carbolic acid. Carbolic acid, also known as phenol, is derived from petroleum products. It is a dangerous substance under certain conditions, but it is also a powerful antiseptic. Joseph Lister first proved its effectiveness in 1866 when he treated a compound fracture with carbolic acid. Most compound fractures killed people during this time period, but Joseph's patient survived without developing an infection. Over the next several decades, carbolic acid would become widely available in England. It was used to treat wounds and was used by midwives to deal with potential infections during childbirth. And in some cases, the disinfectant was a convenient way to commit suicide. In 1897, a woman named Elizabeth Legge became a midwife at a workhouse. Workhouses in Victorian England provided shelter and work for the poorest members of society. It also forced them to live in close quarters. The living conditions were miserable and disease was rampant. As bad as it was, life in a workhouse was still better than living on the streets. Unfortunately, the master of the workhouse didn't like Elizabeth. In March, he told Elizabeth that he no longer required her services and she needed to find work somewhere else. A few days after receiving this termination, Elizabeth retrieved and consumed a bottle of carbolic acid. Witnesses reported that they heard a gurgling sound coming from her throat soon after she finished drinking it. Then she collapsed. Doctors pumped Elizabeth's stomach, but it wasn't enough to save her. She died in a hospital several hours later. The doctor that treated her at the hospital said, "The limbs were curled, the pulse was rapid and feeble, and she was breathing rapidly. She said she had taken carbolic acid. An antidote was given her, but it had no visible effect. Deceased died at 7:15 in the evening, no doubt a distressing 12 hours from the time she first swallowed the acid." Elizabeth wasn't the only person to die this way. Young women all over England used carbolic acid to kill themselves. It was an agonizing and popular way to die in the 1890s. Carbolic acid fell out of favor as less dangerous antiseptics were discovered. However, it still appeared as an ingredient in soap until the 1940s. Were the inventors during the Victorian era negligent? Or was death just a necessary consequence of progress? And are we better at making products safer today? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Now we need to ask you to do something for us. History is important, and you have the power to make YouTube believe it too. All you have to do is like this video or any others you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel while you're feeling helpful. Thank you for watching Bad Things in History.